Hey guys, so this is part 2 of our SwiftUI tutorial integrating Firebase and Google Sign-In with SwiftUI. So just a quick recap, since this is part 2, we're working on integrating this example application that I have up here and running the simulator with a Google Sign-In button, so you can tap the button and sign in using your Google Sign-In credentials. So that's where we are. That's what we are continuing to build. In the previous video, let's go ahead and quit the simulator. In the previous video, we were working on installing the dependencies, the Firebase auth and Google Sign-In, and setting up our project in the Firebase console. And now that we've completed those beginning or preliminary steps, we are about to start diving into the actual implementation or code implementation required in order to start the Google sign-in process in our application. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started with step number 1. So number 1 here says to import the required header files. First, you must import the Firebase SDK and Google Sign-In SDK header files into your app. So in our App Delegate, we are going to import the following header files. So I'm going to go ahead and copy these 2 lines and switch back to my code and the App Delegate. So let's go ahead and copy that in the header. If you can recall, I'm going to go ahead and go to the first line here. The reason that we have import Firebase is because we were trying to implement or set up our project, our current project with Firebase. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that line, just like I just did just now. And let's go back, switch to the documentation. And in the view controller of our sign-in view, import the following header files. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that again. In that view, sign-in view, we were working on that, or we're going to start working on that in the content view.swift. So in the very top of this file, Command V, and we've got it pasted there as well. Okay, now going back to the Google documentation. So number 2 says implement Google Sign-In. So implement Google Sign-In by following these steps. See the following Google Sign-In developer documentation for details on using Google Sign-In with iOS. So number 1, add custom URL schemes to our Xcode project. So that basically, and open your project configuration, double-click on the project name in the left tree view, select your app from the targets section, then select info tab and expand the URL section. Click plus button and add a URL scheme for your reverse client ID. To find this value, open the Google Services info.plist configuration file and look for the reversed client ID key. Copy the value of that key and paste it in the URL schemes box on the configuration page. Leave the other fields blank. When completed, your config should look similar to the following, but with your application-specific values. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So the value that we need is in our Google Services info.plist. So I'm gonna go get into that, and we need the reverse URL. So the reverse client ID. So that's this value right here. So yours is going to be unique to your application. Command C. And I'm going to go into the resources tag, I believe, tags. Oh, so we're going to go into Firebase Google Sign-In or whatever you named your application, and we're going to go into the info tab. And under URL types, there shouldn't be any current URL types, but we can go ahead and add ours then. So just click on the plus button. And we need to copy that into the URL schemes, I believe. Let's go ahead and check that. Yep, in the URL schemes. So just Command V that value, and we've added it. Oops. Okay, so we've added those URL types. So it's okay. So there we have our first one, which is we just have the necessary URL type for that. Okay. So we've completed step number 1 of the implementing the Google sign-in. And now number 2, declare that the app delegate implements the GID sign-in delegate protocol. So in the app delegate.swift, we're gonna copy this line. We're gonna add this GID sign-in delegate. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy that right now. Command C. Oops, let's copy the whole phrase. I'm gonna add that in the app delegate.swift. Let's go back to the app delegate.swift. Add a comment here. Command V. Okay. Now going back, step number 3. In your app delegates application did finish launching with options method, configure the Firebase app object and set the sign-in delegate. So here's the code, Firebase app.configure, and then these 2 lines of code. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. And in the application did finish launching with options method. So that's this line right here. Did finish launching with options method. So let's go ahead and copy that down there. So again, we already did the Firebase app.configure from earlier. So I can just go ahead and get rid of the repeated line. Okay. Step number 4, implement the application open URL options method of your app delegate. And the method should call the handle URL method of the GID sign-in instance, which will properly handle the URL that your application receives at the end of the application, at the end of the authentication process. So we're gonna go ahead and implement that. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy that. Let's go back to our code. And we can go ahead and add that top here. All right. Let's see what this is complaining about. Protocol stubs. Let's check on that and at the end of the document once you've completed all the steps. And then for your app to run on iOS 8 and older, also implement the deprecated application open URL source applications annotation method. We don't really need that, but we can go ahead and just copy it anyways. We'll just add that below the other method. Okay, and step number 5, in the app delegate, implement the GID sign-in delegate protocol to handle the sign-in process by defining the following methods. Let's see. So we have two methods here. We have 2 methods here, so this is required for the protocol. So let's go ahead and just copy both of them. We'll add that below the other 2 methods we've added. Okay. All right, and now returning back, see now that we've implemented these methods here, which were required for the protocol, since we declared GID sign-in delegate, we're required to add these 2 methods here. Since we added those 2 methods, the error went away. All right, so it sounds like we're done with those steps. Now, number 6, in the view controller, override the viewDidLoad method to set the presenting view controller of the GID sign-in object and optionally to sign in silently when possible. And then step number 7, so we'll do this, and step number 7, so let's go ahead and read that first. Add a GID sign-in button to your storyboard, XIB file, or instantiate it programmatically to add the button to your storyboard XIB file, add a view and set its custom class to GID sign-in button. So step number 6 and 7, it's not as simple as following this documentation because this doc was meant for UI kit. So now that we're working in SwiftUI, this is where we kind of differ, and I will show you guys how to complete steps 6, 7, and 8 when it comes to designing the GID or the Google sign-in button. Alright, so step number 6 was to, in the view controller, override the viewDidLoad method to set the presenting view controller of the GID sign-in button and option sign-in when possible. And 7 was the same thing, yeah. Or it was additional with the UI kit, and then to design the button. So let's go ahead and continue step number 3, which is authenticate with Firebase. So in the sign in for user with error method, get a Google ID token and Google Access token from the GID authentication object and exchange them for a Firebase credential. So let's go ahead and copy this. Sorry, let me just go ahead and read this first. Let's go ahead and just copy this and go and copy this set of code. The step number 3. We'll add that in our code. I have a feeling we might have repeated code. Yep, invalid redeclaration of sign did sign in. So we can get rid of, so this code here, as you can tell, is the same code that we had above. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the first instance of this method. Which is this one right here. And the error should go away now. Alright, so the error is gone now. Okay, so now we can authenticate with Firebase. We can work on authenticating with Firebase using the credential. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this line of code and place it after the point where we retrieved the credentials from the Google Auth provider. So that's going to go right here. So after we retrieve the credentials. So it seems like the indentation isn't correct, or it's slightly off. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of this and Control I to fix the indentation. So here we retrieve the credential from the Google Auth provider, and with those credentials we are actually going to sign in the user using this line of code. So once that is complete, and if there isn't any errors, then the user is signed in. So with that, it seems as if the rest of the steps that we need to complete is in the content view, or in implementing the Google sign-in button in the content view.swift file. So I am going to end the video here, and in part 3 of this tutorial set, we will go ahead and begin the implementation of the content view to include the, maybe a logo and some text and the Google sign-in button. All right, thank you.